In this video, I'm going to provide and walk you through the details that are provided for an auction property here on auction.com. So this is a bank-owned property labeled here, and they kind of define it what it is. So this is something that already went through sheriff's sale and is now owned by the bank. So a lot of the liens associated with the property are went through the process, and it's a clean title that most of the time you'll get. But again, you run your own title company through it to make sure everything looks good. Here's the property address. And then they're going to provide photos for the property. This one here doesn't have interior photos because it is occupied. And where that is labeled is down here. They label it here that it's occupied. And you can kind of see there's a car in a driveway as well. So someone's still living there. Now, if it was vacant, sometimes we'll have interior photos. Sometimes they don't, and it'll be labeled down here that it was vacant. And then just general property details, the bedrooms and bathrooms, the lot size, the square footage, the type. It's a single family home. Is it a multifamily? Is it a manufactured home? Those are different property types that you'll see. This is just for them, the event ID, and then what year was the property built. Over here, we have, I guess this is what I never use this value, but this is what auction.com is estimating maybe an after repair value on the property or after renovation value on the property would be. My recommendation is to comp it out using local MLS comps if you have access to that. If not, use Zillow and filter on solds and look for properties in the same neighborhood, similar square foot in baths and bedrooms as well. That will determine, what the actual after repair value and current values are. This line here is the opening bid. This is what the initial bid has to be. So if you think this property, so if you're a real estate investor and you're looking to, buy, renovate, and resell it, you kind of know what your after repair value is, your renovation budget and all your holding costs, and then what profit you want to make. And from there, you'll determine your maximum bid amount. If your maximum bid amount is this number or greater, that means it's a property to take a look at and bid on. If it's much lower than this, let's say it's 125, then obviously monitor this property. You're not going to bid on it because your number's at, for example, 125 versus the 150 opening bid. If you want to register for the auction, you have to create an account and just register for it. It's a simple process, and they have helpful how-to tips on how to do that on auction.com. Up here in the bar under Learn. Here's just titles and liens. They're saying here most liens are removed after foreclosure sale, but certain liens may remain. Again, we recommend using your own title company to do the proper title search once you have it under contract and before you buy it. And then a few things here I've already expanded. Buyer's premium here, there is no buyer's premium on it. So there's not an additional fee that the auction company will collect for this property. Sometimes if there is a buyer's premium, a lot of times it's a minimum of maybe $2,500 or like a 5% of purchase price. So if this did have a buyer's premium, it would say something like 5%, for example. And in that example, if you bought it for $100,000, it would be an additional $5,000 fee that you would pay at closing. This is a cash only, so conventional financing is not acceptable for this property. So that's an important indicator. And then there is no access to this property, and that's because it's occupied. And one way to get around that, if you're local, is maybe somehow look into the windows if you can, but it's tough to do when it's occupied. So in cases like that, what we do is just assume the worst case scenario that it needs a full complete renovation on the inside if you're not able to get access. And then here, in this scenario, no broker agent commission on this property. However, in some cases, if you're working with a local agent, let's just say there was access to the property and they visit the property with you or without you, you could actually put them on the transaction if you win the property, and they would get a commission from the bank. And then down here at the bottom, some files, on the property that you could sample purchase agreements, additional property information, if any. But I'm going to scroll down here to the transaction details, and I'll blow it up a little bit. Here, all these bank-owned properties on the auction sites are what we call subject to seller acceptance, so the bank's acceptance. And just because you're the highest bidder and the reserve is not met, you may or may not win the property. Hence the subject to seller acceptance. So essentially when you buy, you fill out a checkout form. If you're the highest bidder, and you'll get an email from auction.com, you'll fill out a checkout form, and then the seller will review your highest bid and who's the buyer and all that kind of information. And if they agree to it, that's when you kind of go through the closing process. There's also earnest money deposit on this property. A lot of people use the acronym EMD, earnest money deposit, and here it's 5% of the total purchase price, or $2,500, whichever is greater. So again, if you're buying a $100,000 house, it's going to be $5,000 earnest money deposit on that property. And then here, again, you might receive a special warranty deed or equivalent, but I recommend you use your own title company to do title search and purchase title insurance when purchasing this. And then, buyer here is responsible for any escrow fees, and they kind of give a range here. If this property is in some kind of homeowner or condo association, check with them to see if there's any delinquent fees on there that need to be paid. And also, it's a good thing to know ahead of time, what are the ongoing or any one-time special buy-in fees as well. We've seen some large numbers on some condos and kind of higher, more affluent areas. So that's something to consider as well when buying this. Again, all these auctions are being sold as is. So the bank's not going to make any repairs for you if you win it under contract. And then this property is being offered exclusive for auction.com. It's not on the market yet. There's some kind of generation fee that they're going to add to it at the closing. And I mentioned this earlier, if the seller's reserve price is met, auction.com, until the seller's reserve price is met, auction.com may counterbid on behalf of the seller. So sometimes if you see, you place the bid, it automatically goes up right away. That might be like auction.com automatically counterbidding that up. So be aware of that. Stick to your numbers. Don't let emotions get involved and chase the bid higher, is my recommendation. And with that, that's kind of all the transactional details that they have. Hopefully this video was helpful in kind of giving you a flavor of what kind of information is provided on auction.com for an individual property auction.